Disney has a Marvel problem, and finally they're willing to admit it. 8772 Radio U. CEO Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, just went on record finally admitting that they, this is a quote from him, lost a little focus by making too much Marvel content. It got watered down. It got to be where they were making too much and not putting the care they needed to, not putting the quality over quantity. And finally, Disney is saying, yeah, we admit it. We did do that.
Well, I will say I agree more with the second half of that statement than the first half. And I've seen this a lot with a lot of the superhero stuff. A lot of people are coming up with excuses as to why these movies aren't doing as well as they used to. Because a lot of these superhero franchises were making buffo bucks, 5 years ago. And I've been seeing the excuse mainly being superhero fatigue. But I feel like we wouldn't be as fatigued if you would just put more care into the projects you are making. So I agree more with the second half of the statement, less with the beginning, because it's like, I don't necessarily agree that you're making too much, but you're making content that people don't like, that people aren't enjoying as much as they were in the past. So if you put more care into it, and maybe it is you need to make less to actually be able to put more care, maybe that is the answer. I don't know. But I'm like, in my mind, maybe do a better job at what you're creating and not blame it on people being fatigued by it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you are fatigued by it being... fatigued by it being bad. Yeah,
but that's a difference between there's just too much to choose from. Because if it was all good, that would be different than it being like, well, all of it's kind of bad and now we just don't want to go because we're tired of being disappointed.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the problem is that between putting out a bunch of movies, which is one thing, and he said this, this is a quote again from Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, "In our zeal to flood our streaming platform with more content, we turned to all of our creative engines, including Marvel, and had them introduce or produce a lot more. And frankly, we've all admitted to ourselves that we've lost a little focus by making too much." They had Marvel try to crank out a lot of shows.
Yeah.
And particularly that's where some of those are some of the worst flops in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
But then also because everything was connected, it felt like you were missing out on something or required to watch it to be able to understand what's going on in the movies, which it should not be that way. But then you're like, well, I don't want to watch this thing that sucks, but that means I can't go watch the movie that may or may not be good because I don't even know what's going to go on in it. And so it's just all too much when you really, the more things you make, the more likely some are going to be bad.
Sure.
And when they're all reliant on each other, then the bad things can really bring down the good things.
Yeah, it can weigh things down. But I just feel like I'm tired of hearing this as an excuse because I feel like it maybe takes away a little bit of the ownership sometimes because it's like, oh, we just made too much. We stretched ourselves too thin. We were too ambitious. And it's like, sure, but maybe it was also that you've just lost a little focus as far as what fans actually enjoy, what good storytelling looks like. Maybe admit that a little bit too, because you made some movies with a lot of money, a lot of budget, and that took a lot of time to make. But the story was not very well written.
Do you think also they just thought, and this is true of Marvel and like with DC and with so many other franchises that aren't even superheroes, it's like if we just put the character that people like out here, Star Wars, the characters and stories that people are familiar with, then they'll just like it. That's what they want. And it's like, no, we want good movies.
I think that's exactly what they thought.
Probably happened to feature people that we're more familiar with.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the good news is they admit they were cranking out, not just with Marvel, but with other things, too much for their streaming platforms. And so maybe they'll start making less, and maybe they'll lower the prices.
No, that's never happened.
While you're here, you should watch more of our videos and subscribe so you don't miss what we do next.